More on this is Republican Senator from North Dakota, John Hoeven. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. Give us your take on today's meetings. What happened?
Good to be with you, Melissa. I think you said it just right. Cautious optimism. I think at this point we're hopeful. I think we've laid out the construct that can lead to a big deal, and we need to do it.
And so what is that construct? What do you think the final deal looks like?
Pro-growth tax reform, entitlement reform, and better spending control, and a deal that is in that $4 to $6 trillion range.
Okay, so what is pro-growth tax reform? To me, that's from a Republican, that sounds like the closing of loopholes and not the raising of marginal rates.
Well, it's closing loopholes, it's limiting deductions, and then getting revenue from growth. And that's really the only way you're going to get revenue, because you've got to have the economy grow. And if you start raising those rates, you're going to have just the other effect. You're going to have a shrinking economy. You're not going to get more revenue. So we are putting revenue on the table the right way, and that's what I mean by pro-growth tax reform.
So it sounds like you're still saying no to an increase in marginal rates, which a lot of Republicans would applaud, but others would say, maybe we're not going to get a deal done at this point if you don't raise marginal rates. Do you not agree with that?
Well, but Melissa, we're doing exactly what President Obama's asking for. We're saying don't raise rates. Therefore, you're not raising taxes on the middle class, but by closing loopholes, by limiting deductions, now you do have, as he says, the wealthy paying more. And look, the only way you're going to get more revenue is with economic growth. We've got to get this economy going. We've got to get people back to work. Combine that with real entitlement reform and better control of spending, and we get back on track.
The way that you just phrased it, while many people might agree, the president says the math just doesn't get you there. It makes me feel like we're not going to get to any kind of a deal.
Look at the math. We already have $1 trillion that we'll capture over the next 10 years as a result of the Budget Control Act. You'll have another $1 trillion, from the BCA. $1 trillion because we don't have the cost of the wars. And what I've just laid out would easily get you another $4 trillion. That's a $6 trillion deal. That gets us back on track.
A recent poll found that 53% of people say that if a deal doesn't come together and we go over the fiscal cliff, they would blame Republicans for that. Do you care? Does that make a difference right now?
Look, it's about getting a solution. It's got to be bipartisan. We're reaching out in a very bipartisan way. It's going to take both Republicans and Democrats to get the deal done. We need to do it, and so we do it together or we share the blame together.
What's the most important thing that you want to see Democrats put on the table?
We've got to do entitlement reform. Look, we can do entitlement reform in a way where we don't change it at all for anyone 55 or older, and younger people want to see the kind of reforms that are going to keep those programs solvent for the long term. So look, Republicans and Democrats can come together, and older and younger demographics can come together with the construct that we've put forward. I'm hopeful we can get a deal. We need to do a deal, I believe, or at least have it in place before year end.
What does that mean, have it in place? I mean, do you think that we're going to end up having some sort of cobbled together temporary solution to get us through the end of the year, where you set another exploding deadline where you have to do something real, maybe in June or later in the year?
Melissa, that's a great question. No, what I mean is that you have the construct of the deal and it's agreed to. You may have to have a short-term extension so you have time to fully implement it, but it's got to be agreed to, and so that you've got, as Speaker Boehner talked about, penalties that would go into place if it's not done. So the construct in place may be a short-term agreement to get it fully done, not kicking the can down the road.
Okay. Yeah, that can gets kicked all the time. Senator, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Well, it's not just D.C. that's coping with the uncertainty.